Hello, Blaine Gray here, Plastering for Beginners. Today we're going to be dealing with this. We've got a concrete wall, it's been pebble dashed, and basically we're just going to re-render it so it looks nice and smooth. And the key issues we're going to tackle first, we're going to have to tackle preparing it, we're going to have to talk about putting the corner beads on, and then we're going to obviously have to render it. So we're going to go into quite a lot in this video today. First thing I would say, what I've got to do is make sure that this wall is solid. The misconception is it's not safe to render on pebble dash, but to be honest, this is probably one of the best keys you'll ever get, because basically you don't have to put any mechanical key onto that. That's exactly what you want to be going onto. The only thing is you're going to be wasting a lot of render in your scratch. So the first thing though is you want to make sure there's nothing loose. So give it a good sweep. This gets rid of any dust and any loose pebbles. So get a good brush. The ones that aren't firmly on there are coming off. And then all we want to do is just weigh it up. So when we apply the render, it's got a bit of moisture so it can grab onto the concrete behind it. I've put lots of SBR in my mix as well, which is going to help it bind. My only other issue is you can see where the panels have been joined. My issue is if they move, it's going to crack the render. So what I'm going to do is also put some mesh in the render, but I'm going to do that on the top coat. It's going to be easier because if I try and put mesh on top of pebbles, it's going to be a nightmare to get it flat. So I'm going to put the scratch on first, and then put the mesh on with the top coat. But first I'm just going to give it wet, give it some moisture. Nothing crazy, just get a bit of water on there. Just wet it up. The other perk to this, if there's any loose pebble, it's going to come off as well. Okay, so I've changed my mind. I'm going to put this in the scratch coat, and the reason for that is just because the closer it is to the actual surface, if there is any crackage, it's going to hopefully prevent it getting to the top coat. I just thought because of the pebbles it would have been easier that way, but I'm just going to do it now anyway. So what I do recommend with this stuff is cut it first before you start whacking the render on. Everything's prepped, cut it, roll it up, and that way you've got your sheets ready for where they are. When the render's on, you just throw it up. It's a lot easier that way. So what I'm going to do is just put it on the ground. Put it where I need it. Just cut it. That one. And you want about 100mm overlap on each piece. That way if there is any movement, you've got a bridge between the two pieces of mesh. What you do when you've got that, you just roll it up. Roll that up. The next piece, leave it on the ground. And then same again. Got your piece. Just roll them up. And that way when it comes to applying the render, all you have to do is just put this straight on over it. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So I'll get the other piece cut. I'll start whacking the render on. Happy days. The thing I like to do before I start rendering is check the wall I'm working with. So this one, running across, it's got a massive belly. It's got a massive dip on this side here. So I know that I'm going to have to apply a bit more render on that section. So this is, if you check your walls before you start rendering, you know briefly what you've got to do. It just makes your life a bit easier. So this section, I'm going to have to add a bit more render. I'm going to rule off the scratch, and then the top, hopefully, be nice and flat to work with. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I've got the first strip on. I didn't want you to watch me do that because it's behind all this. It was a bloody nightmare. Well, a good tip. I've already got one piece of mesh on here. What I'm going to do is, like we said, overlap it by 100. So what you want is to roughly do a line where your next mesh is going to line up to, because when you apply the render you might not be able to see the end of it. So the idea is you always put your render on first, you put your mesh over, scrape it back, and then carry on until you're at the end. So I'll show you. You want a tight coat at the beginning. The mix is a bit wetter than usual, but it's all good. What you want when you're applying the render, you really want to push into the wall. So you do it, you're pushing hard. You've got to make sure that it's getting a good grip to the background behind it. Working right to left, which is apparently the way to render. As you're getting your render, you're pushing in hard. Keeping an eye on the line you've just given yourself. So this is a mix of 4 to 1, 4 sand, 1 cement, lots of SBR, and that's just so we can get a grip to this background behind it. It's going to be fine, but if you put the SBR in, it just gives it that extra stickiness. So get right to the top. You always apply your render first, otherwise it's a nightmare the other way around. So don't put the mesh on and then render, it just doesn't work. Okay, so we've got the render on. What I'm going to do is offer this up to it now. Make sure you've got your line, your 100mm overhang, so I can follow this. Offer it up. Over. Yep. You got it kind of where you want it. Roughly put it on, and what you do is work from middle up, middle down. That way you won't get any crinkles in the middle, because that's a nightmare. So work up. Really pushing it into the render. This is where it's nice to have a wet mix. You don't want it to be drying, otherwise it don't really get into the render. You want it a bit wet so it can suck in there. Really taking the render, pushing it out, and then putting it back on again. Need a bit more off the top. Sun's coming out now. Sun's starting to shine on the wall, which isn't always good. It's alright for now, but Now, middle working down. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing. Got my line, know where to work to, whack the render on. Okay, so that's all the mesh on. Now what I want to do is check, see where we're looking now in terms of the wall being straight. So there's a massive dip in the middle. This whole area. It's like the wall comes like this. So each end kicks out and the middle is sagging. So what I'm going to try and do is pull it out a little bit, add a bit of render. Just try and straighten it up, that way the top coat is just going to be a lot easier. So this is scratched out. My camera actually had a bit of a malfunction, so it's not actually filming me flattening that, which is a nightmare really, because I spent time doing it. But I'm going to go over this tomorrow. We're going to get the top coat on, we're going to rule it off properly, and I'm going to show you everything you need to do. But for now, what I'm going to show you is how to stick corner bead to the corners, obviously. So we've got some render applied to the wall here. What I'm going to do is still wet. So I've still got a scratch at, so I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But what I've got to do, because it's pebble dashed, I wanted to get the scratch coat on first and then put the bead on top. So what we wanted thin plastic beads. So this is the 10mm beads. This is designed for, you put this on top of your scratch and then all you've got is a finished coat leading up to that. These are designed for rendering, not just acrylic, but they are for sand cement as well. And I'll show you exactly how to put it on. So I've cut it into place. And what you do, you get some of your render, throw a bit on, the French way. Then what we're going to do is place it on top. Now, we're going to get a bit of grab, but you don't want to push it all the way because we need to play with it to make sure it's completely plumb both ways. So, put it on. Let's see what it's saying. So it needs to come in. It's about right there. The bottom needs to come out. Let's check that way. Make sure you check both ways as well. That's bang on actually. It's quite lucky. And then you get some more gear, you fill it in. Gently take the excess off. Make sure you bed it in tightly into the render. Make sure you really push the render into the beads. check one more time. It's actually a bit of a bow in the middle. Better. That one can come out. That's it right there. Same both sides. Check. Cool, hang on. That's what we do. Flatten that off. Then we scratch it. Don't go in too deep when you're scratching, just go on the surface. You want to apply some waves, that way top coat's going to stick firmly onto the scratch. So what happens is, because you've got the waves, if it contracts it'll buckle in to each shape, meaning you've got a stronger grip. And that's it. You've got your scratch coat on, your beads on, ready for tomorrow when we're finishing. Okay, so we're back the next day. This is obviously dried up significantly. The sun was on it all yesterday. So what we've got to do is got to give it a bit of water before we start applying the second coat. This is just so when the render hits, it's got something to stick to. The water's going to bind it to the scratch coat. It's just going to help it adhere. If you don't do that, a bit of trouble. So I won't show you too much, just wet the wall up. Your water brush, bit of water. It's literally it, it's not rocket science, this bit. Easy. And then after that, you can start whacking the render on. And what I'm going to do is work left to right. I always work from the bead, always, because that's your governing thickness. From there, going to work backwards. I know some plasterers going to go skits because I'm not working right to left, but I always work from the bead. That's my reference point, and that's what I'm going to work from. So this time we're going to work from the bead, working inwards. Okay, so now we're ready to start applying the render. The top coat, for anyone who wants to know the mix, it's 5 to 1. 5 parts sand, 1 part cement. And I've also got half a bucket of lime in there. That is to make the mix creamier. It's a lot nicer to work with when you're floating. But I live in Hastings, which is near the seaside. Lime gives the render some flexibility. So if you live on the sea where you've got a lot of aggressive wind and the salt's in the air, lime is ideal for your mix. But I recommend putting lime in the top mix anyway. It just makes it a lot nicer to work with. So that's the mix. All we've got to do now is put it on, again working from the bead, and we're just going to rule it flat as we go. So I'll show you what I mean. Working from the bead. And that 10mm thickness is perfect for your top coat. Getting a nice level amount on. So again, because we're following a bead, we know what thickness we want the render to be at. And when you're applying the render, put it on and try not to play with it. What happens, the steel will bring the moisture from the back and force it to the front. This will give it a lack of attention and give it a lack of stick to the scratch coat. So you want to make sure you put it on and just kind of leave it. Get it flat where you can, but you're going to rule it anyway. So And again, a lot of pressure when you're applying it. Really push into the scratch coat. Get a certain area applied and you can start ruling it off. So we've got an area on. It's actually sucking in quite fast. I think it's because yesterday was hot. It's very hot today. So what you want to do is you don't want to rule it too far ahead of yourself. If you do a big area and it's gone dry, it's going to be really hard to pull off. So work from the bottom. Let's get that done. Let's dry fast. It's dried very fast. This is why you don't want to work too far ahead of yourself. You want to rule it when the render's still quite wet on the wall. Now we're going to fill in the low spots and do it again. A bit more over there. And reel it again. Straight away this time. Scrape it off and always put it back in the bucket. You want to use it again. So you don't just rule one way, you rule both ways, horizontally and vertically. That way it's straight both ways. Nearly there. It's just a low spot here. Gonna fill that in, and that area should be good. Feel anything about this video, if you like it or if you've got anything to say, just leave it in the post below because I read them all, so thanks. I always find the first area is the hardest because that's what you've got to get flat from nothing, but now the second section I can use that as a guide and just keep ruling from that point. It's really easy from now on. Well, you say that, but so now I'm going to keep applying a render and do the same thing. Gauge how it's drying as well, because this section dried so fast. I'm just going to do smaller smaller areas at a time and rule it off from there, because it is so much easier just doing it when it's a little bit wet. So so it's all ruled, all of it's done. Now we've just got to wait for it to start floating. Basically the hotter it is, the shorter you're going to have to wait. And not only that, but the suction in the background, this ain't going to take long at all. So what we're going to do is give it a bit of time to cure, and then we're going to float the wall. And that means where we start closing it in, and then we get a nice finish. So give it a bit of time, keep touching it. When it goes touch hard and you can't really get your finger in anymore, it's good to go. Okay, so this is final stage plastering. This is floating. This is called a float. Mine's very worn down now, it's very thin. The idea is you float the wall to compress the render. From there you sponge it up. So it's a crucial part, and this is what gives you the finish. This is actually dried up very fast. It's only been about 40 minutes. It's not taken long at all. So what you do is just check the area first. So you can see this, it's quite wet still. It's compressing nicely, and it's filling in any gaps. And this, probably a bit too wet. If you've got any dry spots, so this section is actually a bit too wet. But you can get it. Problem is with floating is one section might be really dry, like this edge. This bit in the middle is quite wet. What you've got to do is try and find a happy medium between the both. You don't want it too dry, you don't want it too wet. But it's got to the point now I've got to finish it. Just because otherwise, if you don't do it all together, you'll get lines. So really, ideally do it at the same time. So this bit's really dry, put a bit of water in. Take a bit of fat from your float. And work towards your bead. That bit's really dry. As soon as you add the water, it really just brings it back again, which is a lovely thing about render. If you've got any gaps where the areas where low, just fill it up. And what you're doing is you're holding your float flat to the wall, circular motions. And what it's going to do is take the areas where it's high spots of render, it's going to take it off, and it's going to fill the areas which are low. So circular, gap up there, take some render. Fill it in. Again, take the fat from you and just fill in the edges. Always work towards your bead. And the final part is the sponging. You want to get a sponge, really drench it, get all the water out of it. You don't want to add any moisture to it. We're going to gently sponge it. What we're doing is bringing all the aggregate to the surface. Just leave a nice textured finish. What I'll do is go over it once. Then wet your sponge up again. Really squeeze it out. Really dry this time. Now we get a nice finish. I'll show you. So this is it. Grab the sponge, very gently float it. Literally don't put any pressure on. Circular motions, hardly touching it. Don't put any pressure on the wall. Just let the sponge bring the aggregate to the surface. This started to get dirty, turn it around, use the other side. You're literally just gently sponging it. No pressure. Try and blend into the area you did before. Come back on yourself. Just gently sponge the wall. Working towards your beads, always work towards them. Fill in any gaps that there is. And that's how you sponge, easy. As long as you've floated and ruled the wall, that's the hard bit. All we're doing now is just giving it that nice finish. And that's it. That's it. That's that side done. Finished just in the nick of time because the sun's coming out and we don't want it to, so I've literally got it just before the sun started to hit it. So that's it. That's how you render a wall from start to finish. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can watch us on the next ones. Thanks so much for watching. Blaine Gray. See you in a bit.